Hi, I'm back with another one of my videos. Thank you for joining. Today, the CD that I'm talking about is George Carlin, Parental Advisory, Explicit Lyrics. First comedy album that I've talked about in this series. I first became familiar with George Carlin probably in the late 70s, early 80s, rooting through my parents' record collection. My parents had a copy of Toledo Window Box, and I didn't get the humor. I didn't understand. I knew it was funny. But I didn't listen to it in its entirety, but I remember mentioning it at the dinner table. And, oh, we found this really funny record. And I described it, and I saw this look of horror on my parents, on my dad's face. And the record disappeared not long after that. But I ended up buying another copy a few years ago. And he was a great stand up comedian. If you're not familiar with him, he was a comedian, actor, writer, and he was very outspoken about issues like censorship, which is one of the reasons why he called this album Parental Advisory, Explicit Lyrics. This was around the time that an organization called the PMRC, which stood for the Parental Music Resource Center, was trying to prevent music which they considered to be harmful from being sold in stores, in regular retail chains, and making it difficult for artists who, use too many cuss words or have sexually explicit or violent material, whatever the PMRC decided was harmful to minors. They wanted to remove it from being sold, and it became a big battle. And Frank Zappa and Dee Snider from Twisted Sister actually spoke out before Congress to talk about issues such as censorship. And an unexpected ally arrived in the form of John Denver. John Denver came out to speak before Congress on the issue, and Dee Snider and Frank Zappa were unsure how he was going to handle the situation or what he was going to say. And he came out, and one of the things he talked about was how his song Rocky Mountain High was misunderstood to be about marijuana, when actually it was about the natural beauty and euphoria that you feel when you're in the Rocky Mountains and witnessing the beauty of, was it Denver, Colorado, or Boulder, Colorado, where he was from? But to be up in the Rocky Mountains and seeing the natural beauty and seeing, falling stars and that sort of thing. He spoke out against the ignorance of those trying to censor artists and how harmful it was to the culture which artists are trying to create. Meanwhile, back back in the other room, Frank Zappa and Dee Snider were high fiving each other because they were so surprised that John Denver was coming to their aid. Anyway, the compromise that the PMRC ended up coming up with was that albums would still be able to be sold, but they would have to have a parental advisory sticker on it. And so George Carlin decided, well, I'm not only going to have a sticker, I'm going to make that the title of the album, and it's going to be part of the artwork covering his mouth, showing how he's being censored. And this was also not long after two teenagers, one committed suicide, the other one attempted suicide after listening to a Judas Priest album repeatedly. So there's some interesting quotes in here. As you can see, there's no artwork other than the picture on the cover. It's just writing. And he's got some quotes in here. Please try not to commit suicide after listening to this album. He's got a quote here from Charlie King. America is like a melting pot. The people at the bottom get burned and the scum floats to the top. And then John Dillinger, never let them make you crawl. There's also a notice on here. It says, this recording contains no backmasking or subliminal suggestions. All messages from the devil are recorded clearly and audibly in straightforward standard American English. Um, George Carlin was really outspoken when it came to the hypocrisy and the ridiculousness of modern society. If you were to listen to this album now, you'd say, oh, this guy would be canceled. But I think he'd actually speak out against the idea of cancel culture. He'd probably have a long bit about just the selection of words. He loved to analyze words and break them down. One of the things that he talks about at the end is euphemisms. One of the things that he mentions is how in World War II, veterans came back who were traumatized by war. They were just diagnosed as having shell shock. How that was an effective term. And then it became battle fatigue. And then finally, an acronym PTSD, which stood for post-traumatic stress disorder, which kind of softens the whole idea of what is actually going on. He also has a lot of observational humor. He has stuff about dogs and good ideas, things you never see, things you never hear, things you never want to hear. Some of it's really funny. Some of it, for me, it crosses the line. But he should be free to speak his mind. I believe, and it's up to us as listeners to say no. I'm not going to listen to it. That's up to you. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say about George Carlin right now. If you get a chance, check out his books. Brain Droppings is a good one. The book I read was Last Words. It was sort of his memoirs that were published after he died. He passed away in 2008. There's also, he did a number of HBO specials. So if you're not familiar with George Carlin's work, I highly recommend you check it out. Thank you for watching.